Death Game follows our main character, Choi Yi Jae, a student trying desperately to get a job. Before an important interview with the powerful conglomerate company, Tae-Sang, Yi Jae is shocked when he sees an office worker jump in front of a car and die in his arms. Shook, Yi Jae ends up failing the interview and gets stuck for years working a variety of part-time jobs. Feeling like everyone is moving ahead with their lives without him, Yi Jae falls into depression, which isn't helped when a friend who convinced him to invest his money runs away and leaves him penniless. Later, after misunderstanding a situation and thinking his girlfriend is cheating on him, Yi Jae breaks up with her when she tries to give him an envelope of money. Returning to his apartment, Yi Jae finds all of his stuff on the rooftop. Turns out the lease was up on his house, and so the owner kicked him out in the rain. Having slept in the rain, the next night Yi Jae decides to commit suicide by jumping off his apartment's roof. However, instead of the quiet, peaceful abyss he expected death to be, instead, he wakes up in the body of the Tae-Sang conglomerate's second son named Jin-Tae. Luckily, his confusion doesn't last long as death itself shows up to explain the rules. Offended that Yi Jae took his own life, Death has designed a unique punishment for him. Yi Jae will be shot 12 times, and every time he gets shot by Death, he will wake up in the body of someone who will die. If Yi Jae can avoid dying, then he can keep living in that person's body. But if he fails to survive until the end, he will be sent to hell. Death gives him a preview of what will be awaiting him in hell. Every time Yi Jae wakes up, he will get all the memories and abilities of the person whose body he is in, which will come to him in a floating orb. After learning the rules and waking up as Jin-Tae, Yi Jae is initially excited. Jin-Tae has everything. He's flying in a private plane and has stores of luxury items and treasure troves of money. But his excitement doesn't last as the plane soon explodes, burning Yi Jae and his new body to a crisp. He doesn't survive much longer in the second body either. This time, Yi Jae wakes up as daredevil YouTuber Seung Jae-Seop, who is taking part in a challenge to fall from a plane without a parachute for a 300 billion won reward. This doesn't work out, and Jae-Seop, like Jin-Tae, also dies gruesomely by crashing into the ground. Next, Yi Jae wakes up as Hyeok-Su, a high schooler and son of a single mom, whom another student, Lee Jin-Sung, is bullying. Although Hyeok-Su is much stronger than Jin-Sung, Jin-Sung is a bully because he has the support of some seniors that he knows. Acting from his understanding of teenagers, Yi Jae, as Hyeok-Su, manages to convince Jin-Sung's lackey to help him make Jin-Sung an outcast. When the older kids realize that Jin-Sung is actually a loser and that it would be humiliating to defend him, they abandon him and Jin-Sung becomes teased and mocked across the school. Resentful that he has fallen to the bottom of the social ladder, Jin-Sung decides to attack Hyeok-Su with a brick from behind and kills him. Just like that, Yi Jae is out of high school and has now entered the body of Lee Ju-Hun, a professional assassin who has stolen his boss's money and plans to run away with a girl that he loves. Yi Jae's time as Ju-Hun is very different from his period living as Hyeok-Su. With a huge international underground corporation hunting him down, Ju-Hun just barely manages to escape. Finally losing his hunters, Ju-Hun meets up with the girl, but in a twist, she shoots him in the head after he tells her that the money is on the boat. What she doesn't know is that the money is somewhere else. So when Yi Jae wakes up again, he is excited to go and find it. With a bag of cash waiting for him, imagine how furious Yi Jae is when he wakes up as a prison inmate named Tae-Sang. Coincidentally, Tae-Sung's cellmate is Jin-Sung, who murdered Hyeok-Su before and is now pretending to be some insane psychopath. When Jin-Sung tries to kill him again, Yi Jae teaches him a lesson by convincing him that he is being haunted by Hyeok-Su's ghost. Now, about Yi Jae's new body, Tae-Sang. Tae-Sang is an MMA fighter who was paid to take the fall in a traffic accident that wasn't his fault by a top lawyer. Initially, the lawyer promised that Tae-Sang wouldn't go to prison because he was a minor. However, when the victim died, Tae-Sang ended up being sentenced to serve time. Furious that he isn't getting paid more when he is sitting in prison, when Tae-Sang tells the lawyer that he will expose everything, the lawyer and whoever is behind him pay someone to try and kill Tae-Sang in prison. Luckily for Tae-Sang and Yi Jae, Tae-Sung's fighting skills save him, and he makes it to his release date unharmed. Once outside of the prison walls, Yi Jae instantly goes to get the money that he'd hid away when he was living as Ju-Hun and puts half of it in a train station locker. Afterwards, still carrying the rest of the money with him, he is stabbed by the traffic accident victim's father and is then again attacked by the one friend that he made in prison, who it turned out was also someone who was paid to kill him. Starting to feel hopeless, the next body that Yi Jae wakes up in is a 5-month-old baby of abusive parents. In the quickest life ever, Yi Jae dies after the mother suffocates her baby. Luckily, the next time Yi Jae wakes up, he is pleasantly surprised to see that he is in the body of Jung, a famous model who lives a luxurious lifestyle and has the looks to match. Having learned his lesson, Yi Jae makes quick work of getting his money from the train station locker. With his money secured, Yi Jae decides to enjoy his life as Geon-U. Later, when Geon-U is tasked with helping run a local cafe, Yi Jae is shocked to run into his girlfriend, Lee Ji-Soo, who goes to the cafe every day to write. Yi Jae learns that Ji-Soo had written a book based on their relationship, and that the money she gave him before he passed away was the award money that she won for her book. Watching Ji-Soo and his mother grieve his death, Yi Jae starts to regret committing suicide as he reminisces about his own life. Unable to stay away from Ji-Soo, Yi Jae pretends to be someone who is also writing a book and tells Ji-Soo about everything he has been going through. By telling her the story, eventually they become close, and one night, Yi Jae finally decides to confess that he is, in fact, her dead boyfriend. As shocking as this revelation is, Ji-Soo doesn't have a lot of time for it to sink in as they both die immediately afterwards, killed by a speeding red sports car. Although Ji-Soo dies on impact, Yi Jae is alive enough to recognize that the car being driven was by the oldest Tae-Sang brother and CEO, Park Tae-U. Park Tae-U was also the one who killed his brother in the plane to become CEO, was the real culprit who sent Tae-Sang to jail, and he drove into the man in front of Yi Jae's work interview 7 years ago. Having watched the love of his life die in front of his eyes, Yi Jae mourns Ji-Soo's death and is determined to avenge her by killing Tae-U, despite Death's warning that she will step in if he tries to kill someone. Although all Yi Jae can see is red, nothing can prepare him for the violence of the next body that he will wake up in, the insane serial killer Gyu-Cheol. An artist and psychopath as a child, Gyu-Cheol gained international fame with his gruesome artworks as an adult. Having murdered 15 people by sawing off their limbs and then using their blood to create his horrific paintings, Gyu-Cheol feels no remorse, partly due to a brain tumor in his head. Reliving Gyu-Cheol's memories, Yi Jae is disgusted and instantly throws up. However, Yi Jae quickly spots an opportunity to use Gyu-Cheol's body when Tae-U contacts him with an offer to buy an artwork. Ready to avenge Ji-Soo's death, Yi Jae shows up at Tae-U's house and starts to fight him, but Tae-U has his hunting gun with him in the car. In the end, Yi Jae wins and takes Tae-U to Gyu-Cheol's studio, but once inside the studio, the table turns when Gyu-Cheol's brain tumor causes him to faint. Finding himself tied to the table, Yi Jae has no choice but to listen as Tae-U explains how he has been a psychopath since he was a child. But since driving into the office worker 7 years ago, he hasn't been able to feel the same thrill since. Finally, in the most painful death to date, Yi Jae dies after Tae-U saws off his limbs and then proceeds to kill him. Death is surprised when Yi Jae isn't fazed by the gruesomeness of his last death, and instead jumps into his next life, this time as An Ji-Hyeong. Ji-Hyeong is a police officer who has an earned reputation for prioritizing his safety, which has made him looked down upon by the other officers. So, when Yi Jae, as Ji-Hyeong, runs into Tae-Sang's cellmate on the street with a knife and arrests him, all the other officers, especially Ji-Hyeong's partner, can't believe their eyes. Meanwhile, Tae-U is hooked on the high of dismembering Gyu-Cheol and wants to do it again. Later, he tries to lead his assistant to Gyu-Cheol's studio, but isn't allowed in after Ji-Hyeong calls forensics and closes the studio. As it turned out, Gyu-Cheol had a habit of filming his crimes, and Yi Jae had set up a camera to perfectly capture Tae-U sawing off his arms and legs. But for now, Yi Jae starts by exposing Gyu-Cheol and keeps the video of Tae-U for later. With Ji-Hyeong being hailed as a hero, Tae-U starts to feel Yi Jae's eyes on his back, and so, in a surprise move, Tae-U admits to killing Gyu-Cheol, although he makes up a fake story that it was self-defense after he was kidnapped. With the TV stations refusing to play his video of Tae-Yu dismembering Gyu-Cheol, Yi Jae furiously sends Tae-Yu onto an exploding plane just like Tae-Yu did to Jin-Tae. Having escaped the plane with a parachute, once on land, Yi Jae starts suffocating Tae-Yu, only stopping when Jisoo's pen falls out of his pocket, bringing him back to reality. But Tae-Yu doesn't escape scot-free. When he tries to attack Yi Jae, a gust of wind gets caught in the parachute that he's still wearing, and he crashes into an oncoming truck. After his crash, Tae-Yu is left without legs and in a vegetative state, while Yi Jae is still living as Ji-Hyeong. With Tae-Yu unable to defend himself, Yi Jae, using all the memories he has accumulated throughout all of his different lives, exposes Tae-Yu as a psychopathic killer, as well as the crimes of all of his accomplices. Having got his revenge, Ji-Hyeong dies saving his partner's life, and Yi Jae is reborn as a homeless man. When he sees Ji-Hyung's funeral announcement on the TV, Yi Jae decides to drop by. It's no small event, celebrated as a natural figure of justice and hope. Every powerful person in the country came together at Ji-Hyung's funeral. Seeing how Ji-Hyung is celebrated, Yi Jae starts to realize how useless it all is and becomes depressed. His life as a homeless man ends when he accidentally dies after falling down the stairs. Now determined to end his punishment, Yi Jae wakes up in the body of the office worker who died 7 years ago. Regardless, Yi Jae runs into the street and is hit by Tae-Yu's car. Dying in his own arms, Yi Jae, as the office worker, sees death and looks up at her with desperation, as if saying, "Please end it all already." It is this look that Tae-Yu mistakenly thinks is directed at him that causes him to feel like God and become obsessed with it. With only one life left, Yi Jae is exhausted mentally and physically. Ready to be done with his punishment, he is brought to his knees when he wakes up in his mother's body. Reliving her memories, Yi Jae learns how hard it was for his mother all those years. While he was struggling with his many part-time jobs, his mother was coping with the grief of losing her husband and doing her best to support her son. Going through his mother's memories firsthand, Yi Jae starts to understand how much he took her love and care for granted. Living his mother's daily routine, Yi Jae also realizes what death was trying to tell him all along. Although he selfishly thought killing himself only hurt him, by taking his own life, he was massively sinning against the people who loved him, namely Jisoo and his mother. Now, massively regretting his suicide, Yi Jae decides to go on the hike that his mother and father always used to go on together. Walking down the hike at night, Yi Jae ends up falling but luckily survives, and goes on to live another 32 years in his mother's body before dying of old age. Seeing death again after 3 decades, Yi Jae begs her to give him another chance to live as himself again and to allow him to repay the sin that he committed against his mother. Feeling touched that Yi Jae has finally realized what she was trying to teach him, Death agrees. And just like that, Yi Jae is, for one last time, reincarnated, this time into his own body. Death's game ends with Yi Jae waking up on the rooftop of his apartment and, instead of jumping off the edge, he picks up his mom's call.